As they chased the Dork Order and fucking Top Flight and everybody else that was sticking up for AEW in that particular time. They chased them out of the building with bats and steel pipes and whatever, and we never seen them again until Dynasty. They could have used that shredding of the documents as the big hook. Instead, they come out, they do it for Hangman, then they want to be buddy-buddy with the Death Riders in some type of partnership. But how do we tie that partnership aspect together? By shredding the documents. All they needed to do to make sense of everything instead of, we did it for the Hangman, like they're fucking recreating Rikishi doing it for The Rock. We did it for Hangman. No, that's not the way it should have been. Shredding the documents should have been a way for them to tell the story that they were the ones funding the Death Riders to take over AEW because of what happened previously with Tony Khan. They could have tied both of these storylines together and really made sense of it. Would it have been great? No, I don't really give a shit about any of this because 6 months of this has just left me emotionless. But they yeah.
Funding them in what way?
Money.
They're already getting paid.
Whatever, man. Whatever. They're in cahoots with them somehow, some way. They're the ones pulling the strings. They're the ones operating as the fucking dark, shadowy figure of the Death Riders. They are working for the Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks are funding the Death Riders. That's the way it really should have been. But what we got on Wednesday was fucking lame.
Backup request.
I'm not really excited even coming out of the pay-per-view for their explanation moving forward.
They could have come up with something more interesting for it. Maybe there's still a chance they will. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I just kind of feel like it may be one of those things they did it. Maybe they didn't have a really good explanation for it, and it's just sort of going to hang there like that. I don't know. It was a mildly interesting hook there for a while. So why are they shredding documents and fleeing? And I don't know. You know what the problem is? Even if they, at the end of all this, even if there's some explanation where they can try to kind of close that loop, I lost interest in this so long ago, and I just want this to end. I really just want this to be over so we can move out of the Death Rider phase that we're in and move on to whatever the next big story is going to be on this show. This has dominated so much airtime on these shows now for so long, and it's going to continue to do so.
We need to find out what happened.
July. I mean, that much is clear. But I have no interest in this. You know, they have not grabbed my attention, and it's been months now. I mean, this has been going on now for months.
Backup arrived.
I'm just at the point where I feel like
Backup
anybody
has
would go
arrived.
forward. You got to be careful you don't drag the ball. And I think there's going to be some good stuff that comes out of this. They kind of together for we end up getting swerved.
Another agent has joined.
Oh, he's missed.
Vital signs critical.
Man, why did
Agent down.
Just to get a win over this group that has been relatively unbeatable. And we still see Yuta and Claudio occasionally do that. They've just been dominant for so long. There is some good that could still come out of this. And of course, we don't know what it's going to be Moxley for the title. Probably Ospreay, but we don't know. Where my head is at right now is just can we just get there so that we don't have to deal with this anymore. Because I look ahead at where they're probably going with this. We're heading into Double or Nothing. And what is the match they usually lead through a Double or Nothing? And so when you look at the chess pieces that are on the board right now, you've got Swerve, and you've got Hangman, you've got the Eyes. There's 5 guys right there. And on the
Safe
other
area
side,
entered.
Moxley, you've got Claudio, you've got Yuta, you've got the Bucks. They end up on the same side. So, like, the pieces are there if they want to do an Anarchy in the Arena match, or if they want to do a Blood and Guts match. Actually, Swerve on Dynamite as he was walking away, like, looked into the camera and said something about that. So we know they're going to do it. This is where I think we're headed with all of this stuff. I think the Bucks basically saying, "Hey, John, partnership or what?" They've been trying all of a sudden to get us with this. They've been sitting at home for 2 months now taking over AEW. What does that even mean? What does that mean?
They can't do it.
Again, it's a good story because it's trying to say we're we did, although it was and then
Oh no, I'm still looking for an explanation as to how Death Riders are taking over the company. What's their mission statement? You got Matt Hardy
Inventory.
coming out this week saying, I don't really know what the Death Riders are supposed to do on television. What are they? What is their mission statement?
Human remains detected. Identified as division agents.
There's no way the outcast could have taken out an entire squad in a fair fight. It's not possible.
It is very confusing. I'm trying to look at here. Front up first thought. Finally, for the first time in 6 years. We got Scarlet Joe. If you want to include Osprey, well, she should have been in that because the fucking face of the company. Darby Allin coming back, hopefully alive from Mount Everest. And he's going to fit into that. You know, we finally have a group of baby faces that look legit. That should have been the group from fucking 7 months ago to go up against the Death Riders. Finally, to go up against them now, leading into their biggest show of the year. So that, to me, is a big help.
well, you know, you're not going to assemble this crew right at the very
Somebody
beginning.
still alive.
Just have a storyline and drag it out for fucking 6 months.
We also didn't need the Dark Order either, but I mean,
No, it was awful. It was awful. But I understand why we didn't get Swerve and like every top baby face all at once.
Nowhere to
So then
hide.
they wouldn't be able to tell the stories.
Online computer detected.
Nothing is really gonna
Great.
change in that
You
regard.
can use the computer to sync Isaac with their comm system.
That's
Hopefully
gonna
we can get a
me
20 on our
anywhere
team.
in the story. You'll get
If they're in
those
any shape to
moments
answer.
where- especially when like Swerve and eventually comes together.
Connection established.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Holy shit, Swerve
This is Manny Ortega with the division.
Manny, thank God. It's Maya. I'm all that's left on our team. We couldn't get the node back online. I salvaged some equipment that would get the White House node connected to the national network, but before I could get back, those crazy fucks showed up. You gotta get me out of here.
do you find? Look, I have nothing against Swerve and Hangman. I think their story too is one of my favorite in all 5.5 years of AEW. I think what they have done is tremendous. Their body work is tremendous. I don't want this to be taken seriously, but do you feel like they are trying to force that feeling, whatever that feeling is, get back the feeling of old AEW by kind of going back into yesteryear and doing some of the things that we definitely resonated. To me, I'm looking at this Bucks, Hangman, Swerve. I kind of get a similarity to Bucks, Hangman, and Omega, which is still my favorite tag team match in AEW history. Are you getting a sense that they're trying to go back and do what they used to do and kind of bring it back?
That was just the case where they were all part of the league. And yeah, they had that great match with Revolution back in 2020. This is the completely different story. I don't think it's a matter of them not going to there's a different fear of their own. Last year or there, like a Avengers Endgame. And I think they're kind of where they're all trying to do it all in Texas. You're going to have all these guys finally, AEW, to band together. Hopefully. That's why that into the atmosphere, but you know, can we really just
After Dynasty,
if Monsters could at least, here comes Judah with the knee, here comes the death come out and throw a knee. Like, I think that's the kind of ending that we're gonna get, probably, and that the baby faces will. But we still have a ways to go until we
That bitch, kid.
I think that scenario is definitely, you know, they're definitely gonna take a page out of the remaining 40 playbook. One other thing before we move on here with WWE, because I know I certainly do, that you ever played Match 5/Game of
Received an endorsement.
You know, because it's Halloween or TLC and all these other things. Triple H thankfully got rid of these gimmick concept pay-per-views. Is this something that Tony Khan should really look at in the future to say, you know what,
Help is on the way,
scale
Maya.
this back because
Sit
the more
tight
we
and
do it,
just
the
try
less
to stay calm.
impactful it is going to be for our brand?
Well, we do have a war game.
Well, it's starting to feel that way too, honestly.
It is. No, it is. And I feel the same way about that too. If you have a good enough story, support it. And if you don't, that thing's dead. The thing that struck me, I'm thinking about anarchy and freedom. I do feel it. But I'm thinking about the other thing. And if they do what it does, they will have been involved in do it gets them. We want to tell them.
We gotta put out the flames. I don't know if Maya has any fireproof gear.
Well, the undisputed era in NXT, they have three wrestling goals, 48 matches in a row.
They were fun. And the matches end up being the quality. Well, I got so sick of the New Day and the Usos. I mean, we saw it so many times. It's like, yeah, they have great matches, but for the love of God, we please like put some separation between these two.
Roman and Brock. I mean, there's so many examples of just yesteryear in WWE, Vince just running shit into the ground. Before we move on to the WWE discussion, Jeff Cobb actually tweeted this. For some reason, this just showed up on my timeline. Wow, overwhelmed by the messages and support and hate. Smiley emoji. It's very much appreciated. So I just wanted to clear up any rumors and innuendos. Yes, it is 100% true that the monster Matanza Cueto from Lucha Underground fame was in fact watching my matches from his cell and stealing them to use on El Rey Network.
I have to
But
move.
don't worry, I have
Someone's trying to
contacted a
break in.
wonderful lawyer in Stephen P. New to rectify the situation. Thank you for the support in these trying times, says Jeff Cobb. Forever.
He should, if he's a lawyer, man,
Frankie turn.
Frankie, I hear he charges $400,000.
He does.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's very sarcastic on social media. You're not going to get a straight answer out of him as far as like what's going on. You know, I'm not surprised that he got that tweet, but shout out to the monster.
I'm safe for now. but I
We're
don't
getting
think they're
into
gonna
some
stop
WrestleMania
coming after me.
discussion now.
I don't know what I did to make them
Figured
so
we
mad.
would, before
You
we get
have
into
to
the
stop
preview
them.
predictions,
They're coming. It's not safe.
we'll go back in the time machine and talk about WrestleMania 9. A very, very what was the overall? Some people loved it, some people hated it. Most people hated it.
It
But
didn't feel like a wrestling.
it looked like this.
No, it really didn't.
No?
It really didn't. No, it didn't. You know, they tried something new. They wanted to try something different, which is fine. Yeah, they were going for a different cause. But I just remember even when I was watching the show, I remember watching it.
Ratings.
And it just didn't feel like a WrestleMania. You preferred outdoor
Playing
WrestleMania.
ratings.
But it just didn't feel like it. It was really they really did WrestleMania. But then it was
Which, I mean, there's a certain fun to that, but one of my first questions here tonight in regards to
Medical assistance needed.
how do you feel WrestleMania transcended from the early days and it just carried out with bigger them going to fucking partnership with the whole grade, put it, but it didn't really feel like it was on the grand scale of previous WrestleMania until WrestleMania. Big
what that doesn't really tell you is that a huge chunk of those people were getting freebies. Like it was a heavily paid for show. They may have actually made more money off WrestleMania 9 than they made off WrestleMania 8. And think about that. They had 60,000 people there for WrestleMania 8. They did 16,000 for WrestleMania 9.
Well, 16,891 was the attendance, and they did a gate over 1 million compared to.
With the equipment Maya recovered, we can restore the Shade network across the entire country. I'll send a team to assist Maya and retrieve the fallen for a proper burial.
That's not great. I may not want to hear that. I'm the biggest Brett fan of time, but that's just the reality of the situation. It's not his. I'm not going to put that all in his feet. He was a champion at a time.
Inventory. Social.
So WrestleMania 9, this documentary you guys can watch it on Peacock right now. It obviously goes over for 2 hours. WWE's first outdoor WrestleMania. They coined it the world's largest toga party, and it obviously had a very unique setting. They highlighted the challenges faced in building the set and the impact that it definitely had on the company's trajectory, like Jason said, going into 93. The way we see WrestleMania now, we see never before seen footage
An
of
agent is no longer in your group.
Hart, Blink the Clown, and Lex Luger. I mean, you name it. Some of this stuff obviously nobody knew existed, but to see this now, current day, coming out in 1993, I always enjoy seeing shit like that. But the documentary, Jason, starts off with the narration of it being the first outdoor WrestleMania. And it highlights the attendance and the gate record that they set for $1 million there. Obviously, WrestleMania now, we're doing 100,000 people plus with these two night WrestleManias, and they're breaking fucking records left and right. This will be the most, I would say, the revenue from this WrestleMania is going to blow last year's out of the water, and they're probably doing 20,000 plus less people in this Allegiant Stadium than they did at Lincoln Financial Field last year, which is fucking ridiculous. But as far as the question here for the first part of this, I have for you. I looked at this when I'm watching this as, all right, this is their first venture into really creating a unique set for WrestleMania. Nothing really before this kind of stood on its own. Everything kind of had that similar feel. Do you feel like no matter how bad people, coin this WrestleMania as being the worst ever WrestleMania, could you argue at least it was one of the more influential WrestleManias? Fans give it credit for being, and
Another agent is
is
now
it
in
a
your
starting
group.
point to where we see WrestleMania now with the influence for them to go out there and try to be different with the sets and the design? Was this the starting point for what we see WrestleMania now?
I think that they really overplayed that in this documentary. There's somebody who made the I don't remember who
Social.
it was, but somebody made the comment like, without
You have
WrestleMania 9, WrestleMania doesn't exist today as it does.
It might have been
And
Kofi Kingston, I believe.
okay, well, whoever it was, I mean, that's just not true. WrestleMania would have gone on to become what it became regardless, because that's just the way things were trending in that direction. So this just happened to be the first one where they decided to experiment with a specific theme, right? This none of the WrestleManias before this had like their own unique theme. This one was world's largest toga party. Let's build our own little Roman Coliseum here. So yeah, I mean that is technically true. But when I heard that comment, and they're really trying to make this WrestleMania out to be more influential than it was, because wrestling and WWE in particular, that's what it was always about. It's more about the entertainment. So it wasn't like WrestleMania was always just going to be a straight wrestling show. Like they
Inventory.
were always going to go down the road that they did.
Inventory.
It just so happened that WrestleMania 9 was the first one they tried it with, but if it never happened, it's not like WrestleMania wouldn't be as big as it is today with all the pageantry and everything that we see it being today. But it was the first. It was the first one that they tried some of these things to see what would work and what wouldn't work. So in that regard, like it's one of those WrestleManias where if it came up on TV and you just saw like 2 seconds of it, you would know right away what WrestleMania that's from.
agent in need of backup.
Why were you so indifferent to the overall set design? For some reason, I think of it and it brings back some nice childhood memories. It puts me back in that time period where I was a youngster watching the show. What didn't you like about the overall vibe of the set? Did you not like the outdoor setting because of the outdoor?
No, I never said that. I never said I didn't like it. What I said was it didn't feel like WrestleMania. When I
So
said
you
that
didn't. So you didn't like it.
no, I said it didn't feel like a WrestleMania. I'll talk slower. It
Yes,
didn't
I know. I'm
feel.
joking around. It didn't feel like a WrestleMania, but why?
It
But
didn't.
why?
But why? Because WrestleMania had a certain look and feel to it up until that point. We had just come off a WrestleMania in a bigger building. We had other WrestleManias like at the Sky Dome. You mentioned, the Silver Dome. Obviously, they had those two at Trump Plaza, so that kind of had a bit of a unique look. This was a much smaller venue. It was outdoors, which was a little weird because we had never seen that before with a WrestleMania. And then you look at the card, and the card wasn't terribly impressive either. So you take the setting where you got people walking around in fucking togas and coming out on camels, and you have this largely kind of terrible card. It didn't feel like a WrestleMania. It felt like just some random show that they were doing, like a a show where everybody gets dressed up in costumes and we'll have some wrestling matches. It didn't feel grandiose like WrestleMania normally did. It doesn't mean I didn't like the look. I thought it was a unique look. I could appreciate the fact it has a certain charm to it. I don't hate on this WrestleMania the way some people are. Oh, it's the worst WrestleMania of all time. I don't think it is the worst WrestleMania of all time. Is it among the worst? It's among the worst. I can't sit here and tell you that WrestleMania 9 was the worst. I think WrestleMania 11 is the worst.
Yeah, that was
WrestleMania 11
Inventory.
was just bad and not like in a fun way. There was a lot of bad stuff on this show. One word I wouldn't use to describe it is boring. Like it was never boring to me. There was some horrendously bad shit on this show, but it was almost funny. And there's nothing worse than like a boring wrestling show. There have been some boring WrestleManias. So I can't sit here and tell you, oh, this is the worst. I will say this though. I think this WrestleMania is the worst when it comes to match finishes. There were some terrible finishes on this show. Countouts, disqualifications, other finishes that just didn't make any sense. That I will say, I think this had the worst. This was the worst in terms of like finishes. But I still look at this show and
Backup
I
arrived.
can watch it. I can sit here and watch the. And there's other WrestleManias like I would not.
Yeah, I watched it back on Thursday night. I enjoyed Shawn Michaels match. The ending, that, like you mentioned, was fucking ridiculous. He pulled the referee out, and they called it a countdown. I'm like, fucking watching this.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
what,
what I
what,
mean.
what happened to the disqualification? It's like he pulled the referee. I know it's a countdown. I'm like, okay. It was a fun match. You know, I don't remember what happened with Luna Vachon and Sensational Sherry after that, but that was a little fuzzy to me. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed when The Undertaker came out after the chloroform and knocked Johnny Gonzalez down. I thought that was pretty cool. I was a big
Watch it like flopping and flailing
yeah,
around.
yeah. I mean, that was to see that again. It's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoyed Matt Bourne and Doink the Clown. The Matt Crush was awful, but I was always a big Doink guy. The commentary, I enjoyed Jim Ross. That was Jim Ross's first WWE show. I enjoyed Jim Ross's commentary. Bobby Heenan was always fucking great. Macho Man, even though he was a little stunad, he he mentioned something. He mentioned something. I don't know. I thought of you because I knew we were going to talk about this. He mentioned something with Sherry on the outside. He's like, what if Sensational Sherry beat Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship? Like, bro, it doesn't work that way, man. Everybody, Ross and Heenan just fucking ignored it, man. What a ridiculous comment.
Well, this is the same Macho Man who only a few months earlier at the Royal Rumble tried to pin Yokozuna and then
Yes.
had to be propelled out of the ring. One of the most absurd finishes ever to a Royal Rumble.
Ridiculous. And it is also a disappointment to see Luger and Perfect. I mean, there was so much hype around that. That
Inventory.
didn't lead to anything, but then we ended up getting Perfect and Michaels leading into SummerSlam that year. Who else was on it? Was Bob Backlund on the show?
Yes,
Who
he
did he
wrestled the Razor Ramon in a 3-minute match. It was a complete throwaway match. They were supposed to have a match with Bam Bam Bigelow and Kamala, and I guess it got bumped for time. So honestly, probably for the better.
But the run time was only 2 hours and 47 minutes.
Yeah, again, probably for the better. So that match never happened. That's what I mean. Like you look at the card, Shawn and Tatanka just kind of by default. had
You're
the
in
best
position.
match. Any other WrestleMania, like a reasonably good WrestleMania, that match would have been like right in the middle somewhere. This was by default the best match on the show, and then I would say after that the tag team match, not the Hogan match, the Steiner match.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean that definitely brought back great vibes, and it was definitely WWE's first venture into being a little bit more different as far as WrestleMania. But Jason is correct; it didn't really feel like a grandiose WrestleMania.
Secure those control
especially
points,
with what
Agent.
we,
Quickly.
Come and see now with WrestleMania just being so large scale. We got obviously the push, the narrative of the new generation, spotlighting Brett, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Lex Luger. We got Ramon, Tatanka, Going the Clown. You know, there were definitely times in WWE where they were very character heavy, and they wanted to shift away from the cartoonish aspect of it to a little bit more athletic. They could Tatanka's work back in the day. You know, it's a very iffy thing. I enjoyed his work back in the day. Did they need to go undefeated for 2 years? Wow, those big red Ramon guys, Matt Bourne, especially in '93, it's been the team. He fit for that era, and I thought what he did was obviously just fucking tremendous. And obviously, so you know, it's good for that period, but anything more than that is never going to see as far as television. But as far as the big talking point is, you know, obviously it was all around the most important part of the documentary. Hogan's inclusion coming back, doing tag team match, said it was his idea, he wanted to come back. Once return for coming back. Listen, brother, I'm not going to take taking the championship away from Yokozuna. Was WWE ready to move on from documentary? Going forward, hoping to turn a necessary step for Vince McMahon to get through WrestleMania and on into the Kingdom.
Oh, well, I mean, evidently they were. There's a reason why Vince went back to Hogan, because business was was not great.
Reinforcements en route.
Not done well. Fly rate wise.
Detecting additional hostile contacts.
WrestleMania was going to suffer the same fate that it did in the documentary. They said the first 2 weeks, terrible, but that's not great.
Heavily armored hostile detected.
Decided that, well, we have to go back to our tried and true. We have to go back to our number one guy, which was Hogan. That's fantastic. Hogan. Hogan was the biggest star in all of wrestling. And but I guarantee
Heavily armored hostile
there
detected.
were a lot of people in that crowd who were not big WWE. I guarantee they were in Vegas. They heard this event was going on, and then they started advertising Hulk Hogan. Son of a bitch! I can understand someone like Brad that could take a guy's roster. We're working to bring back this arm, the old guard. Don't stop till it's secure. Coming in for what, 7 or 8 years? There was a certain lack of self-awareness there. But for all those guys who felt that way, they had every right to be frustrated. I can't fully understand why Vince would have made the decision. Saw that the show was dying on the vine. And WrestleMania dying. See if we can make it do it. And he did. But it was a band-aid on a larger wound.
To do it behind Brett's back for that, you can be upfront with him and saying, listen, I want to give you, Brett said he was promised what? Me neither.
And of course, yes, Vince, if you really didn't feel like Brett was excited, Brett wasn't really still doing it. Still that connection with the world. If that's how he felt, then he could have communicated that with Brett. I never got the impression that figured, okay, I'm doing well, this is where we seem to be headed. Maybe
Bitch, goddamn.
and then he got hit with the news, I think the night before.
Kill squad incoming.
I don't think that was the case. Very different. Not working the way I wanted it It's like the ending of every WrestleMania. What was the common difference? celebration. He never had a heel.
This little we got now.
Babyface territory. So it's not surprising that Vince wanted the happy ending for the show. It's just a matter of well, how you going to get it, right? How do you get to that point? You didn't want to have Bret beat Yoko. Kill Yoko. That's why. Still, the way they did it. But I can understand why they did it. And in the moment, they even got Bret to it. There's something he said that finish that you don't see when you do it. So that's why they did it. Bret and everybody side with Vince as far as understanding why he felt that.
What was? Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on the WrestleMania Hogan. Was Hogan ever saying why was Hogan in the business in WWE? Was he contract or did he say, you know what, I'm going to go and do Hollywood, and he eventually went to WCW? Did Vince
Reinforcements
really put
incoming.
him just like you said as a band-aid? With the notion that he was going to take it off of
Incoming
him,
hostiles
if
detected.
that was the case, he'd only have to go back to someone like Bret anyway. So what was the whole idea about doing this return thing with Hogan? Is he only had to go back to Bret or someone like Bret anyway?
That part is still very fun. You get to a story that Bret Hogan.
I would love to see that.
And that was something that they actually didn't address in the documentary. But Bret said when the show was over, he went up, or Hulk actually went up to him. Get this, or I owe you one or something. Bret was not open. And even at that age, I was thinking,
Heavily armored hostile detected.
fantasy warfare, right? They did this fantasy warfare. And they did what and I was like, oh, this is great, right? So I really thought that.
Bitch.
So I was so what the status was, wrestlers in New Japan did a when he was the title of WrestleMania, he didn't defend it again. Yeah. But he was and the big pass he just completely fucking started talking about so I don't know
Heavily armored hostile detected.
what the actual deal was with him. But I mean, in the documentary, he said that Black was. Hogan said, all of very beginning of the wrestling Yokozuna on the show. And that was it. That was I don't know if Vince expected that this was going to be a short-term run. I don't know if they were negotiating a longer deal. But there was a lot of talk about that SummerSlam. I'm pleased with that a bit, you know, for Bret. To be put over by the old guard. You got this, you know, kind of face of this new era. It would have been fun.
Oh, and so up there.
Honestly, in your head, imagine Hogan back then putting over someone like that.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom.
I don't even believe Hogan's story about what happened with the fucking black dollars. That we didn't even get into yet. He said that it was a jet ski accident, which the way he described it honestly, the way he described it, it would have fucking killed a normal human being. Yeah, and then obviously you got Macho Man, Scott Steiner saying, yeah, I believe Macho Man. Again, I thought of Jason talking about Hulk Hogan, and Jason has had his own clips on Hulk Hogan. If you want to believe that story, by all means, believe it, but that didn't happen. He denied the Macho Man incident. I'm tending to believe Scott Steiner here, but the jet ski, the way Hogan described it, I mean, bro, that did not happen. Give me a fucking break.
No. The jet ski went flying and then landed and hit him in the fucking head. But the best part of that is, so like apparently he's laying unconscious in the water.
Yeah.
And so like he's revived, and he tells Jimmy Hart, he goes, one of the first things I guess out of his mouth that he thought of is like, Jimmy, you gotta work WrestleMania, brother. I can't miss my shots. We gotta do it. I'm old school. You gotta work WrestleMania. Get the fuck out of here. So this is what I mean. He's a habitual liar. Can't believe a word out of his mouth. It's such a shame because if you think about the life and the career that he's had, he would be a very interesting, like, ruthless story. Like, you can't believe a word out of his mouth. So, like, he tells these fairy tales, and maybe there are more sources of truth. But, yeah, I'm gonna get but I did notice Eric Bischoff was answering the tweet the other day. They asked Bischoff, I'm not sure why, because Bischoff didn't even know her. Bischoff was like, oh yeah, because this story, the jet ski story, is true. I was actually negotiating with him at the time, and I know firsthand other people, who were there who would know. Bischoff had just become the executive producer of WC, like right around that really gained power. Oh, they didn't ever be in summer. That first time he started talking to Hogan, negotiating with Hogan, was in '93. And here he was now saying, oh yeah, the WC story is totally true. I was the yeah, well, they just get all these memories jumbled up, so they don't remember everything. It could be
So, didn't the career, if you believe Hogan when he showed up to the when Vince was going to be at the last and always like, wait, I was like, hey, you gotta go get cleared. You gotta get cleared, you go up. So he went to Hogan, the story that he told the doctor, trying to get clearance. Oh yeah, brother, we're doing an angle. Make it look as realistic as possible. That's the black guy that made it clear. You believe that story?
Reinforcements en route.
Physical, and you say, hey, I believe it worked exactly like that. But what I we're getting ready to do a program together. It may be that somehow, like, people heard this, and they took how important that should become this urban. That might be what really happened. The same thing is whenever you're I don't know. No, I don't believe hope. The jet ski did not I don't believe. Maybe they do it, but the one thing that is
Detected.
grab Hogan by the arm and raise him. So, now, if Savage didn't like this guy, to the point where he pushed him in the face, I don't know why they didn't show it. I wish I knew where that footage was from, but I know I've seen it before. He gets in the ring, it's over. Like, they're all doing it. And again, maybe they didn't do it.
Like, did he get into trouble in Vegas somewhere before the show? The night before, did he get into trouble in East somewhere where he shouldn't be? Maybe that's what he mean.
Maybe he said the wrong thing to the wrong person. You know? Well,
Yeah.
that's why I think we'll never know. Savage and Vince obviously wasn't going to sit for interviews. He's another one. You're going to believe what he said. After his comments in his documentary, you're going to believe the word of it.
This was a 2-hour documentary. And this is WW They always do great with these types of documentaries. Before we move on to this year's WrestleMania, what was the biggest miss for you? What do you think they should have leaned into more? What do you think they should have discussed more as far as controversies or other matches that should have happened on the show, etc.? What should they have added? That didn't.
The thing that disappoints me the most is just not diving deeper into the decision to go with Hogan in that spot. So, like, we could talk about the business aspect, and I think at the end of the day, that's really what it was. But I would have loved to have heard from and I know why we can't hear from Vince, but he really would have been the best person to talk about this. When was the decision made? Like, how far in advance was the decision made? Not only is Hogan coming back, but, like, we're going to do this crazy finish, and we're going to have him, walk out with the championship. What was the real rationale behind it?
I don't know how
Was
much
there
longer
really
we can
ever
hold
a
out.
structural plan
We
to
could
do
really
with
use
him
your
and
help.
Brett, down the line, like a passing of the torch?
We were in
I
real
was
trouble.
hoping we would get some more light shed on that,
So,
and they really didn't. I mean, you kind of get bits and pieces from people. Undertaker gives his opinion. Undertaker was like, "Oh, look, the politics being played,"
Yeah, no
and
shit.
then they just moved on. Like, he didn't really expand on that. So I think that was the biggest disappointment for me. Because that was the juiciest thing I was hoping to get out of this. Like in the trailer, they were teasing. And I was like, okay, well, if they're teasing this stuff with Hogan, maybe they'll really get into it. And they kind of glossed over it. So I would say that was the biggest disappointment. Otherwise, I didn't really know what to expect coming into it. So I'm thinking of all the backstage footage. Undertaker in his original gimmick, like out of character, looking at the camera now, like what the fuck is he doing? And Paul Bearer walking around. There's a scene with Macho and Linda McMahon. And he made some
Detected.
joke about, like,
From
oh,
the
what's
control
that?
point in proximity.
Showed it's like Pepsi. And then I think Savage said, like, oh yeah, Pepsi and vodka, or whatever it was that he said. Just like hanging out as like normal people. Brett walking over like, what's this for? And they're like, oh, it's the making of Mania. And he goes, oh, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff like that. Like that's what I was hoping to get out of the original network when like the WWE network became a thing. So I loved it.
Yeah, I thought the documentary, for the most part, was an entertaining 2 hours for sure. You know what boggles my mind is how they go from that, WrestleMania 9, to King of the Ring, one of their worst pay-per-views maybe ever, and then into one of their best pay-per-views maybe ever. So it's like, the time frame between shows was like, holy shit, so polar opposite. Like, how did they go from one to the other?
You know what it was? It felt like they hadn't yet figured out what they wanted to be. It was almost like they were caught in between two different eras. Just enough had changed that it didn't really feel like the Hulkamania era anymore, but he was still there. Like they couldn't let go of it. They weren't ready to just fully embrace this new generation of talent. They were still clinging to like the old guard in Hogan, and they were like in between worlds. That's kind of what it felt like. And then once Brett had the King of the Ring performance and all that, they kind of made the move more towards the new generation of talent, but then look what they did with Luger. As soon as Hogan, lost the title and it looked like he was on the outs, Vince panicked and was like, "Oh, we have to turn Luger and make him the next Hogan, make him the All American guy." But he just kept going back to it. But for Luger, that was incredible.
It was one of the most forced maybe I enjoyed Luger's work, but to a point where
Target is nearby.
they wanted you to know this is our guy, and you had to either fucking live with it or just don't watch. I knew from there I can't watch this shit. It was awful.
Yeah, you could tell he was not comfortable. He was better as a heel anyway.
Oh,
Like,
come
it was so
Flame
forced.
mode.
And it took them a while, and then eventually they realized that Brett was their guy. Because Brett did get more popular as time went on. So ultimately, what happened the following year? Luger lost, and Brett got the belt. So they ended up back there anyway. It just took them a year to figure it out. And that's like a dark side.
You weren't a Bobby Jones guy, no?
Let's see, I wasn't a Bobby Jones guy. I wasn't a PL Hopper.
Yes, I remember the scene.
Who used to come out on the States with a fucking hockey stick.
What about Matt Mays? You want to know what the kicker is for WrestleMania 41? The kicker was, you know how bad of a year it was? Barry Horowitz had a match on 1995 SummerSlam on pay-per-view.
Incoming backup request.
That's all you get.
Barry Horowitz won a match and then got a book. That says it all right there.
Oh, God. If I never have to go back on anything, maybe Horowitz.
So there were a few like that, but
Yeah,
Brett
Brett even.
It's just time. Like, it's time.
Don't fear Lafitte, man. You got. Thank you guys very much, man. We got 3,100 people in here on a Tuesday night. We got only 777 likes. That's a problem. We need 1,000. We have no problem on any given Tuesday hitting 1,000 likes. So you guys in the chat, you're just joining us now. We're going to get into WrestleMania 41 and our freaking predictions. Hit that thumbs up. Super chats are open. Get them on in. Jason and I will be hanging out at the end of the show as always. So that is the best way to support the show. And please make sure if you guys want to follow us on social media, everything you need for both of us is linked down below in the description. WrestleMania 41. We have the Las Vegas live on Saturday and Sunday. We're going to go with night one rather, the match card for night one here, and we're going to run through this from bottom to top because WWE nicely has given us the rundown for night one and night two and what matches will be appearing on each night. So
Looking like 14 matches probably between the two nights.
yes, the only one right now, and we'll talk about it, that doesn't have a match that I'm sure will, maybe, is Randy Orton. So we will definitely get into that. And night two, I will say, is looking better than night one. I know how you feel.
Yes.
Now we'll start with this one. So many 41 preview predictions, folks. Rey Mysterio will go one-on-one with El Grande Americano. Now, I know, Jason, a lot of people have looked at this and said it's silly, and Chad Gable deserved better, but I know you and I discussed this last week and in the previous weeks, and I mentioned it again last night. Beggars can't be choosers. Chad Gable, whether you like Grande Americano or not, Chad Gable's getting a one-on-one match at WrestleMania, so I am very grateful for that, as I know you are. And this could be a sleeper match. Before we get into the prediction of where we think this is going to go, if you mention this WrestleMania card, and we'll get to what Triple H said here. Yeah, sure, not listening to fans but the situation with this WrestleMania card, do you feel like this was the WrestleMania card from November, October, this is what they had planned all along, or is this a card that has been slowly pieced together over the last few months, and WWE realistically didn't know where they wanted to go? Because I mentioned this match specifically. At one point, we were all talking about Rey Mysterio, Rey Phoenix, Penta, and the New Day feuding with the Luchadors, and then maybe New Day teaming with their new friend Grande Americano to go against the Luchadors, and Rey and Phoenix and Penta. And then we move on to Rey and El Grande Americano one-on-one. And then the New Day get the War Raiders in a heatless old match for the Tag Team Championship. So where did this degenerate into? How did this degenerate into what we got now? And like I said with my original question, is this the original vision for WrestleMania? Because I'm starting to feel like
come up with their own thing. They don't get it.
Good job.
You mean to tell me they weren't building to something with Bailey and Roxanne?
Looks like you earned yourself another bounty. Well done.
Like, they were absolutely building in that direction. At some point, for whatever reason, plans changed. And they obviously pivoted to a different idea. Now Bailey all of a sudden is tag team partners with Lyra Valkyrie. Do I think that was the plan 4 months ago? No, I don't. I think Triple H, come November, I would say he probably had maybe in the 75% like nailed down as far as like the key matches, what he wanted to do. And the rest of it, I think that there's always going to be moving parts with injuries. It happens. There are definite matches, and this is one of them, that do feel like, okay, this is something that came together in the last couple of months and was not planned for 4 months ago.
yeah, I agree. I don't really get the feel that this was the original vision, and it goes back to the New Day's heel turn. I don't know where they went wrong. I don't know why they pulled them off so significantly. The heel turn on Big E was a tremendous piece of business, and they never followed up with anything. They kept him off. Well, they didn't really keep him off TV, but they kept him doing the same shtick over and over again in front of those hot crowds, and kind of
they were off TV on some weeks where it was like, where are they? And then they would have them, and they would go to break. And I was using the VCS, right, to see what they would do for the commercials. And they would have Jackie Redmond up with like those things, doing an interview with the news. There were weeks where that's all he done. And I'm like, you guys had like nuclear heat coming out of that heel turn. Like, what are you wasting that for? Like, nothing meaningless sense. So, yes, there were some weeks where they just weren't on TV. And when they were, it was like a backstage session, and that was it. And so they really threw the best. And you saw that match on Monday night last week, where they did the tag match with them and the Viking Raiders. And it was like, you know, it's sad because they had such momentum. I'm not saying they can't get it back, but like, wasted what they were.
Yeah, I don't know where they went, and it's kind of disappointing, but to get back on track here with Mysterio and Chad Gable, aka Grande Americano, I'm going with El Grande Americano to win here. I know Jason mentioned it last week on TNT. I mentioned a mass versus mass match for this, but he brought up the